You're live.
Welcome back to Senate Economic Development, Housing and Federal Affairs. The next subject on our agenda today is S 278, an act relating to cannabis. And this particular part of today's meeting is to finish the walkthrough on this bill with the chair of the Cannabis Control Board, James Pepper.
That's great. Thank you very much. James Pepper, Chair of the Cannabis Control Board. Again, just walking through section by section the draft 1.1 and picking up where I left off where we ran out of time the other day. I do have there's a lot of very technical aspects to advertising. I do have my general counsel, Dave Gilman, here, kind of the head of operationalizing implementing the advertising laws. So I may need to phone a friend from time to time on advertising. Just a few things to mention before I jump back in. I did submit for posting the comparison chart, which just shows certain key policy areas, how we compare to our New England states. So that is posted. I sent it to on your yeah.
Right here.
I also I know there's a lot of concern when you increase per package limits of THC that it may have an impact on accidental exposures, particularly in kids that might, eat an entire box or an entire package of something. So I do also included the 2025 poison control numbers for New England. It shows Vermont specifically, and it shows some historical data there. The trends are moving in the right direction, particularly amongst the sensitive populations. But I'll just leave that data for you all to look through. And then I also there's a few key sections where I didn't know how best to get you the information, but I just have 4 slides or 5 slides that I'll reference. So we left off last time I was here on the delivery permit and the event licensing, which is section 8, draft 1.1. It's page 8, line 1. On delivery, you can see from my comparison chart that I think we're the only New England state that doesn't do delivery. We do delivery for medical patients currently. It's a different model than what's contemplated here. There's essentially 3 models that have evolved on delivery. There's the kind of pizza delivery model where it's an employee of a retail establishment that's authorized to just collect deliveries and go do them. And that's what we have right now for medical. There's the ice cream truck model where you could be a wholesaler, you could fill up a truck, and you could just
statute.
No, it's just that sometimes taking cannabis out of it and thinking about other industries is helpful. So you could be a wholesaler with a warehouse somewhere, and you could take orders and go deliver them. And then the third option is more like the Uber Eats model, where it's just an independent driver that's licensed by the board that can take deliveries, go to a retail store, and go deliver it. So this model that you have here is more of the ice cream truck model, and it would permit anyone with a cannabis license, so cultivators, manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, to apply for this permit and make deliveries between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's some restrictions if it has to be to a physical address, and there's a fee, $100. There's you authorize the board to create some procedures. I mean, really, this opens up potentially a huge number of new retail sales.
Sure. In your scan of the other states, is 9 to 5 common? And also, do we allow this for alcohol?
9 to 5, there are time, place, manner restrictions in every state, but it's not necessarily 9 to 5. I don't know the exact answer to that. Do we allow delivery for alcohol? I would defer to your village council on that.
Yeah, it's beer and wine.
Beer and wine
Not
usually
spirit.
the same way. In a similar way with the ice cream truck model. I just want to be able to look my constituents in the eye if I support this under some standard or.
It's not an easy comparison because you can buy beer and wine in a grocery store. So like, are there like specialty? We've had this conversation about direct to consumer sales that come in the mail and having to have someone over 21 sign for that. So we've allowed that for beer and wine. But we, it would probably be inefficient for them to do like pizza delivery model. And then this is where I come in with overall trying to do something different in cannabis delivery than what we do in alcohol. Wholesalers and distributors have immense power in the middle distribution of all alcohol. There were only 2 left in the state, and they control what products are available and the price and delivery for bars and restaurants and warehousing. It's like a whole thing, and that was a vestige of prohibition in a lot of ways. If we do this differently, we won't have a very powerful distribution industry.
And the net effect of the distribution industry may well be significantly higher prices that Vermonters pay than in some other states that don't have such a limited distribution system.
Right. And I mean, even the warehousing limits what people have in stock. And we've heard complaints from high-end restaurants, for example, that if these 2 businesses won't carry some wines that they really want to serve, that's it. Like they just can't do anything.
But this model is meaning it's an extension of an existing business that would own the truck, go out and be responsible for the transaction, as opposed to the pizza delivery model or the Uber guy, which would be a third party that might also deliver other things. We're not allowing that.
That's not contemplated. This is just we have about 570 licensees. All of them could apply for a permit and to do home deliveries. It says deliveries to a physical address. I mean, some of the stuff that we would have to work out in rule, are there limitations on the physical address? On the medical side, we require that we can only deliver to the address that you put in the form that you filled out to get your medical cards. It's usually people's home addresses.
Madam Chair's hand is up.
Randy, Pepper, do you envision, I know there's a fee to the grower for being able to deliver. Would we then also supervise the delivery fee they would charge? Would we set that? Is that something you'd set by rule?
I would not want us to get in the business of that. I mean, delivery is, we don't have a lot of medical dispensaries that are willing to deliver. In fact, there's only one currently because it's a money losing proposition for them. Just as you can imagine, somewhat rural state, outside of the major metropolitan areas, there's not really efficiencies in delivery. It costs more to deliver.
That's why I'm asking. I mean, so I assume they would charge a delivery fee.
Right. And currently,
It will cost the money.
Well, and so I've tried to follow like the evolution in other states, and I think I've gotten confused about what's currently happening or not. But like at one time in Massachusetts, you paid for the delivery of like a plastic bag for $100, and that plastic bag happened to come with cannabis for free. So it was really squirrely. I think they fixed that. Like I think some states have figured out how to do this well, and I think we want to look at those states.
Yes.
They drop the pot as a gratuity because they couldn't sell the flower, they couldn't sell the bag.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. And a lot of people stumble on the age verification piece. In Massachusetts, they require you wear body cams and, you know, get a shot at the ID. Certainly probably don't want to do that here.
And we don't do that for alcohol. People, a delivery person can come and just get a signature.
We don't know whether or not there's been any abuse or problems with that system, because I haven't heard testimony from where the other.
I mean, sometimes I do think Wendy Knight has come in because we did,
If you have alcohol in your house,
The question, Madam Chair, was whether or not in
If
the
you have
alcohol system, there's been any problem with that system. Or any testimony that there have been any problems with the system. Are you aware of any?
You're breaking up, Madam Chair. We can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes. And we've lost you again in front of the audio.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We heard a little bit, but not your entire,
Oh, well. So you have age verification when alcohol is delivered. You have to show that you have to show your ID.
yes.
and I think the commissioner would, like, I love talking about what we already do for alcohol and how similar this would be. So if we want Commissioner Knight in, you know, I don't think they have seen any problems. I think we asked them to come back for a couple of years and tell us that. And now I think they can do fortified wines that you can purchase and specialty beers, which are higher ABV. If we get like addiction complaints or public safety complaints, they would come through mental health or local or state law enforcement, and they haven't. Remember, we asked them about to-go cocktails, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we're not seeing people with all jar Mai Tais like
It's
getting
been
more
probably,
accidents."
I would say a couple of years. I don't remember hearing anything last year, but
Yeah.
one way or the other. So I'm just curious as to whether or not there have been any problems developing.
What we probably have is like a report on the incidents that.
I suspect it's minor.
Yeah.
Whether the same thing would be true with cannabis. Pepper, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so the one thing that I do want to just mention on delivery is we have this kind of bedrock principle in the Vermont cannabis laws that you're only allowed to have one of each license type, even vertically integrated, but you can only have one and you can only operate at one location. This potentially chafes against that in the retail setting. I mean, what you could see is a retailer who's got their brick and mortar store in Chittenden County, Burlington, setting up a wholesale license down in Brattleboro and having essentially just operating purely on deliveries down there, having kind of more regional coverage of the state, and then maybe adding a cultivation license in, Franklin County and doing deliveries that way, in the manufacturing business elsewhere in the state. So you could see someone I think you should be very clear in here how this proposal interplays with the one license per entity rule.
So this, I think, is another interesting area where we've thought long and hard about this with alcohol. And you can also say the opposite, like we have tied house laws, so you can't be a producer that sells your stuff more with your other license than other people, right? Like that's been a huge headache for a lot of spirits folks, but also even like that's an old beer law. Like people wanted to change forever, but which is exactly why we have a bill this year on allowing a wine retailer to subsume that license for a night to have a catering license that night and have an event where they do not sell their product. So like this is as old as time, the question of who can build a monopoly and how do we move away from that. And we can look to alcohol for lots of examples. It's not perfect, but it's, you can say the other thing too, can retailers set up a a really tight market and hurt producers and vice versa. That's always an ongoing conversation in alcohol as well.
I just want to flag it because you leave a lot to rulemaking in this or to adopt procedures. But that's one where you just have to make a policy decision whether you want the
The
retail.
question is that the right policy decision, whether or not you have any comment on it? I think Madam Chair has a comment at this point on this subject.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. The question, Pepper, if you have language that you would like to propose to us on this so that we avoid the situation you've been describing and that Keisha's been underscoring. I think if you were willing to work with Tucker on some language to improve that and tighten it up so that we don't leave it to rulemaking, I think we'd appreciate that.
That would be well.
This is, I mean, like, we do leave a lot to rulemaking. I agree we should set some parameters, but this is a very sophisticated area of policy that I think only the Commissioner of Liquor and Lottery has kind of mastered to the extent possible. So we could bring in Commissioner Knight, but that's exactly what they do, is make sure that nobody has.
We might suggest that you consult with Commissioner Knight and see if she has any input that might be relevant to
Yes.
you're coming back to us with your thoughts.
Yeah,
Great
Yeah.
idea.
I can absolutely do that. And then I'll also work out with her because again, don't like to recreate the wheel. How does the opt-in, opt-out nature, you can only have a retail sale. I assume the sale would be kind of deemed to occur where the physical address of the person is. So with respect to, has that town opted into retail sales? And then the local option tax issue. And then just one other piece is that currently under current law, this is a technical fix that can happen relatively quickly, but I don't see it in here currently, that retailers are the only entities that are allowed to collect the excise tax. So it's just a technical fix that needs to happen in Title 32. But I can work with her.
Well, I guess the only caution that I just, from seeing where you are right now, is the more new things that you do and the more complexity you add to the system that you have, the more difficult it is to stabilize where you are and move to the next step. So,
Yes.
and I realize you don't want to get behind though in the market, given what's happened in the way other states are competing with us.
Right.
And there's a delicate balance there.
And if you look at the number of full-time employees at the cannabis board compared to the number of licensees we have, and compare that regionally, it's not in your comparison chart, but I do have the numbers here. We run a very lean operation, and this does open up the potential of adding 570 new points of sale. So it's just
One thing
Would they
that-
be able to deliver to towns that had opted out of cannabis? I mean, that had chosen not to do cannabis
That
sales?
issue you just raised as an issue that has to be.
it really depends on whether you think the sale is occurring at the cannabis establishment's physical address, or is it occurring where the delivery is happening? So yeah, there's a few issues that even just on the face of this need to be addressed, and I can certainly work with Tucker to at least point them out for you and give you some options.
Why don't you go ahead going through your bills, make sure we get through this.
Event licensing is next. That is,
we do this.
you only want
No, which one are you talking about?
Oh, the 1.1. Sorry, that's on page 5. I flip flops delivery and event permitting. So this is page 5, draft 1.1, S278. This is a scaled down version from what was in the as introduced. It allows any cannabis establishment. I know last year when we were talking about farmers markets, everything had to run through a retail license. This expands that to every licensee. So anyone can apply for a permit to host an event Also, unlike the farmer's market last year, this does allow for consumption at those events. Um, and, you know, what it is, a cannabis establishment is gonna reach out to the board with a plan for an event. They're gonna have to have written approval from the local cannabis control commission for that, very similar to a local liquor control. So they'll get approval for the kind of day of plan. The town will have the ability to condition that permit with things like, you know, I know Burlington oftentimes requires there be an EMT on call or on site. If they need help with traffic control or anything like that, that can be part of the local decision making. But when they're applying to the board, they need to have a security plan that we feel is satisfactory to make sure that underage sales won't be happening. That the product will be secure because, you know, this is high value products. They're going to present to us product sale plan describing the types of products that they can sell, the amounts they intend to bring, how they're going to monitor those sales. They need to have insurance cover the cost, and we can add in additional health and safety requirements as needed, just so it can be flexible based upon the actual kind of nature of the event that's being proposed.
So it might be good to look at alcohol catering license law, only because I don't think they have to. They're not relying on like an alcohol establishment necessarily. They're relying on a bartending license, and the venue takes a lot of the responsibility on because they already have a big insurance policy. So I just want to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel. We should probably try to make this similar to alcohol, where I just think this is probably a little bit too prescriptive and probably like doesn't work.
So this is based upon the alcohol special event licensing. I met with
But a cannabis establishment, so do we say in that an alcohol establishment, they have to?
No, I mean, if you want to create a totally different license type that just says like a catering list, that was a alternative proposed. This was just something that would allow us to get moving a little bit more quickly. Because all of our cannabis establishments are already vetted, they've already been through background checks.
Right. I'm just trying to make sure that if we're saying it's not just retailers, we're like, let's say it's a farm and the insurance liability would be carried by the wedding venue. Does this allow for that?
Yes. I mean, I think that what you're going to find is that the only people that are willing to insure these types of events are surplus line insurers that aren't going to be traditional insurers. So all of our cannabis establishments currently have surplus line insurance policies. So it would just be kind of an umbrella policy that covers the scope of the event, the nature of it.
Well, I assume that you take a look at how this is done in other jurisdictions and try to model best practices from that.
Yes, I mean, there aren't a ton of states that do this with consumption.
How many states in all of the United States?
California does this and they do it quite successfully. And New York has this just for sales, not consumption. Although they do have very liberal consumption laws, so you know you can consume anywhere you can consume with tobacco products.
That point, your table, which I love, says that Massachusetts, Maine, and New York allow these events. And my question is, do you know when that scan of the variables states, are there scales, adjusted fees? Because $1,000 across the board. I think I raised this previously. You know, if they have a smaller scale based on maximum possible attendance versus a larger scale, because I'm guessing there is going to be a scope and related workload for the review of these applications, depending on the size of the event that's planned.
I don't know if they're scaled based on the size. So I can certainly look into that.
I just wouldn't want to get out the little guy that just wants to have a small gathering of the Northeast Kingdom somewhere expected no more than 200 people versus a ski resort that's going to be attracting thousands and thousands of throngs of people that has the parking capacity. I just feel like your review of the plan for the larger scale event will take more time, that it seems to make sense that charge a different. But
I mean, this is set up somewhat as a pilot. It's no more than 10 events annually, and I think that is reflective of the fact that these are almost certainly happening on nights and weekends, when we don't traditionally have staff in the fields. You know, it really kind of, I mean, we can shift a lot of the compliance burden to the actual event permits. You know, we can do walkthroughs of events, make sure that there's sufficient transportation plans. So we can just say you need to have private security. I mean, in California, they hold about 250 events. Their compliance team, while they're involved in the setup on the front end, they only actually go to about a quarter of them and really focus on people that don't have long compliance history on this type of thing.
Well, for one thing, we're going through a walkthrough of the remainder of the bill. How many? We're now on, I think, what page? Where we're just about to section 8, and have you got to go through all of the other sections to section 30 on this to bring us up to date?
I do, but you know, there's always next week.
Well, unless you can do it in 3 minutes. Looking at the schedule that we have right now, Senator Clarkson.
There's a lot still to go through. I want to hear your response. We've asked for JFO's feedback on this bill, but and a fiscal note, but what are we doing? What are we, when you talk about it as sort of a pilot, the event permit, we don't have a date at which we would want to review how it's working. Do you want to build in a date to review it and look at it as a pilot, or do you want to just let it go? Because I'm reminded that looking through this, we don't have an end date for it or a review date.
I have a report.
Okay, we have a
Yes.
report.
Yep.
I might recommend that our next testimony include experts or policymakers or stakeholders from states like New York and California and Massachusetts and Maine even, because I don't want us to like reinvent the wheel or get nervous about something or, you know, go around the bush on something that is pretty settled in other states. And I was reminded something that I think could be even a compromise, for example, on delivery, which is California, as some may know, has a lot of really rural places as well, huge rural swaths where there are no cannabis retailers. And so they've allowed delivery in towns where there is no retailer. So we might look at something like that for a square mileage amount or a county potentially, because we're not trying to increase geographic density. We're trying to serve places that are underserved.
Well, I think that's important on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm a little concerned about crossover dates and where we are on this bill. And the fact that we've at this point gotten through the entire bill with an explanation of what's in it now without
Well,
having.
Tucker did that for us.
Tucker did
Pepper
that,
was
in all
here
fairness.
for the purpose of doing that today.
Right. But I think, so the thing is, Tucker, where I wrote the bill, right, and there's been some changes that I don't know if I agree with, because what I asked Tucker to do was look at other states where this is really settled and it's working. And that's why I would raise concerns about messing with it too much, or, you know, of course, everyone should get their concerns addressed, but it might be good to talk to other states who went through all of this.
It might be. And again, the issue is time. And as we talk about what we're going to do for time, I think that probably may not get done until Tuesday based on where folks
And that's
are.
everything. Right. I would boldly propose that JFO have
Are you speaking up, Madam Chair?
point or at once. Sorry.
Please try
I
again.
should be fine. I have three. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
We will, if Pepper and Keisha can identify a state, one or two states that could quickly weigh in on those key issues where we don't want to reinvent the wheel and we want to hear how it's working, how long it's been working, and what revenue is generated or not, depending on what the issue is. That would be great. I think if we could hear from two states next week, that would be terrific. And we have been working, we have a draft agenda that we'll have at the end of the day, and we need more time for everything. So we're starting, as you know, at 8:30 every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the next 2 weeks of our meeting. Time is our challenge, and so if we got two states to weigh in, that would be great.
perhaps at the end of the day, or sometime today, we could just clarify the days that will be devoted to each of the subject areas that we have to get done before crossover. So
Will be in the, right, that's what we're trying to work out. We need more time on cannabis because cannabis is a big bill. We also have housing issues that, we're trying to balance it all out, and we have 190. So we have 6 bills that we're going to be trying to get out. We have the last labor bill, we have housing, we have economic development, we have cannabis, we have the vape bill. So we get out and we are
8 hours.
then to have to work with Eric on that subject. At least we can have an outline of what we might do and begin to seek out what witnesses we might need before being here on the date in which we need the witnesses. Which would be a challenge.
right. It will be, but we're up to it. We're going to get it through the House. And remember that the
We'll
House
have to
has
schedule another date for you sooner rather than later, which we will do as part of this process so that we can go through the things that are on your agenda as far as the walkthrough.
That's great. Yep. And if you don't mind, I may have to send in my trustee general counsel. I'm out next week, unfortunately, but it'll be a bit.
We'll attribute the
Yep.
remark.
Great.
That being said, we're running right now 3 minutes late, and which we never, ever like to do. And so we're going to have to move ahead to the next agenda item that's scheduled, and that is S207, an act relating to prohibiting surveillance pricing. And we have with us today Martha Peck, Chief of Weights and Measures of the Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
And Scott Dolan, Agriculture Weights and Market Specialist. You want to come up together? Or you want to do a separate-
You can answer from there. It's what we would like to do with.
Well, why don't you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, my name is Mark Paquette with the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, Chief of the Weights and Measures Program. Scott Dolan, Weights and Measures Specialist, Weights and Measures Program.
And you're going to tell us everything we need to know about surveillance pricing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, we're here to answer some questions and make comments. What we can do, I'll briefly explain a little bit what we do from the Consumer Protection Weights and Measures Program in regard to accuracy and pricing and consumer protection. We follow national standards that are located in this handbooks 130, and we're going to retail stores and conduct inspections on the accuracy of pricing to make sure that the price that is on the shelf is the price that customers pay when they go to the cash register. We issue significant fines and penalties, warning letters, make corrections, and we are passionate about consumer protection and making sure that that pricing is accurate and correct. We have in the works now a House bill that is updating our unit pricing laws and regulations, which is very much in line and related to what we're discussing today. And unit pricing is a little different than price accuracy or verification. It's pricing disclosure to consumers when they go into a store and want to make price value comparisons. But we hope to rename the regulation unit pricing regulation as opposed to simply unit pricing regulation, as we have found that that's going to be the most beneficial for this. So I'm going to just, as far as surveillance pricing, happy to answer some questions in regard to things that you might have to the capability that we can answer. We don't get too involved at this point as far as AI or surveillance pricing. However, it is a concern because, again, we want accuracy, transparency, and we're concerned with the possible manipulation of pricing based on algorithms or programming or AI and all of that. So we have, Scott and I have both looked at the proposed bill. We are not in opposition. We would be supportive of that. I don't know if I fully understand, and Scott and I were discussing it earlier, if we fully understand all aspects of it, and we probably don't have the authors of this present.
Well, Madam Chair, I know
Yeah.
on screen, and I think she has a comment. Thanks.
Right. It was my understanding, thank you both for coming in. I apologize for not being there. It was my understanding that you two are quite interested in the surveillance pricing, and that in fact, the agency that one or both of you would be willing to take on actually reviewing where we are with surveillance pricings with the state, and how we might, how you might come back to us next year with a recommendation. That was my understanding, is that you were doing some work on this. We don't have time actually to take up this bill at this moment, but we would love to give it to, we were led to believe that maybe you would be willing to take this on as an issue to be working on and reviewing and investigating, exploring, and come back to the legislature actually with a recommendation next year on how we proceed.
And so I'll follow up a little bit again with the pricing update to the unit pricing law that we're doing. We are addressing some of the concerns in regard to electronic pricing, electronic shelf tags. And so Scott has done a lot of work on that, and he's with us here today. And for example, in what is going to be reviewed with the House Ag, hopefully very soon, we have something that does address the use of electronic shelf labels, which restricts frequent price changes on those. It restricts the changing on a standard price, which is referenced in 207, the standard price, that would restrict that from being changed during the day and only being changed once that store is closed if it's an increase in price. And so that part is being addressed in that. As far as, and I'm going to let Scott speak in just a minute, as far as the AI, more of the AI and the actual surveillance parts of this, as he is more of an IT person than I am. But we are addressing part of that in our draft, and we hope that that is going to have some limits on, for example, electronic shelf tags and the capability of retailers to build those algorithms and change the pricing in a way that benefits them.
Is this in a bill, or is this?
This is in housekeeping. This is in housekeeping for the Agency of Agriculture.
Bill.
It's in the miscellaneous ag bill in the House.
Yes.
So in the House, and that was a comment from Ledge Council. Just
Yes.
identify yourself for the record.
Michael O'Grady, legislative council.
Thank you.
And so you're saying that this is something that is ready or introduced or
Yes.
going to be in this year?
Yes.
What is it? What's the bill number?
And Scott, do you have a specific?
I
bill
don't know.
number?
It's still a committee bill.
Still a committee bill in Senate or House Ag,
It's in House Ag.
House Ag. And the bill will do, tell us what the bill will do this year,
It will,
assuming, once it's finished and as you anticipate.
it will limit
What we're
and put some
talking about today.
guidelines, guardrails on electronic shelf tag labels and the amount of time that those prices can be changed.
Okay.
And for example, on dynamic pricing, we're concerned with dynamic pricing. I'm going to let Scott speak in just a moment. He's a wealth of knowledge. Dynamic pricing, for example, you folks probably already know what that meter is. But for example, if they have algorithms and studies on sales on certain items, for example, if they spot, it's a Friday afternoon. So if they spot that between 4:30 and 6:30 on Friday afternoons, that sales of a certain type of beer spike during that 2-hour period of time, that they're not allowed to just go and increase the price of that one item for 2 hours from 4:30 to 6:30, and then 6:30 comes, and then they can reduce the price. And we had concerns about that. We want to limit their capability to do things like that. I was coming down to work this morning, as a matter of fact, listening to a talk show that I listened to, a national talk show, and they were talking about surveillance pricing this morning. And they were talking about all the information that they're gathering on consumers. And they're mentioning that people who have their cell phones on them when they go in shopping into the stores, that can be reported.
Which is 99%.
Yes, almost everyone, right?
Yeah.
The down, the specific.
What is that called? Like geo fencing, or is there like a fancier term?
There are different, again, depending on what it is, there's different terms for it and how it's being
Okay.
applied, but yeah. So like in what we've introduced this year, we've put in a definition of what real-time dynamic pricing is, because all prices are technically dynamic, right? They change day to day, week to week. So dynamic pricing doesn't really mean anything but prices that change. For real-time dynamic pricing, we kind of divide. Basically, it's changing as the market changes. And that's what we're trying to go after on limiting, right? Because again, prices are going to change. Like stores right now with paper tags are changing prices 2-3 times a week, sometimes not for a month. So what we want to limit, again, is that real-time dynamic pricing of prices being increased during the day, especially when a consumer can pick a product up. In between that time, like, oh, they pick a product up, they go get a cup of coffee, then they check out 45 minutes later, that price has been changed on it, right?
Well, this is a great opportunity to use a SPY versus SPY and use your AI, show that prices are what you want them to be, and the store, on the other hand, then would change it adversely to them.
Yeah, and we've tried to kind of step back from basically we're looking at the effect versus the cause, right?
Mhm.
Because as Mark said, like it doesn't take an AI to figure out that people buy beer from 4:30 to 6:30 on Friday afternoon, right? I, as a monkey and a human being, can just be like, yeah, I'm going to program this in. That would be what our prices do. AI has nothing to
Oh,
do
like
with
a
it.
surge price.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
You
but
can-
based on the
and
time
so
of
it
day
doesn't matter.
and
Like,
people's-
Do we allow gas stations to do that since they have electronic?
oh, not many have electronic tags yet. There are a few that are starting to adopt it on the gas stations, and that's one of those things.
Oh.
That's one of the reasons why we've introduced this language this year.
Yeah.
Is to just put those guardrails on, basically say you can't increase the price. If you
Okay.
want to have a
But
discount,
like, a lot of them have the big sign has the
Yeah.
the digital now. Do we let them change that in the same day?
I'm not aware that there's any prohibitions, but it has not been an issue.
We
But
don't let them change
Madam Chair,
it.
No,
I
there's
think
no
that's
prohibition.
There's no prohibition.
if I will say this,
Wait just a
after
second and let's, Madam Chair, interject.
Gasoline prices change by the hour. So I think, thank you, Mark and Scott. I appreciate that some of this, our concern about surveillance pricing is in the House Ag Bill. I think with surveillance pricing, the insidious aspect of it is that it's individually targeted. So AI has your personal profile and they can charge more as you, Allison Clarkson, or as you, Keisha Ram Hinsdale, or as you, Randy Brock, approach the cashier. The price can be adjusted per customer. That we have not seen. We have seen dynamic pricing. We have seen prices change within the hour with gas stations. But what I think what we're looking for is how to move the surveillance piece forward. And when that bill comes to the Senate, maybe that would be the appropriate place for us to work with Senate Ag on some additional language that would charge you with maybe coming back with a recommendation to the legislature next year. Would you be open to that?
yeah, I think we would be open to that. I mean, let me just try to speak to that. Your one concern there. So another thing that this new language does, it actually forces everyone at retail level, right? When you're physically in a retail store, and that's what we're trying to cover with this, is it requires everybody to post a price, which is going to be the biggest thing, right? So that way everybody knows, like, as you guys call this standard price, our language, we've just total selling price is the definition we've chosen. In either way, that would have to be posted to the consumer regardless, no matter how big, like for every retailer everywhere physically in the state of Vermont.
Right.
So that way the consumer would know what they're, again, supposed to be paying, what price was assigned.
And that would be allowed to be changed only once a day in your concept?
It would be allowed to change when that store is not open to the public, if they want to raise the price. If they want to offer discounts, that would be allowed whenever they would like.
Okay,
I think.
And I'll just speak, we're updating this. We had original unit pricing laws and regulations. They were developed in the mid 1970s. They've been just slightly tweaked. It has not been updated. When this was done, the internet didn't even exist for the public. And not to mention electronic shelf tags and all those other issues. So this has been a long time in coming for us to address this and update our unit pricing regulations and to increase these other issues such as just pricing in general. And Scott mentioned that our proposal would require a tag and a price for all products anytime it's offered for sale at retail. And the current regulation on unit pricing allows some exemptions where if you have a small store, for example, with 7,000 square feet or less, and it's a sole proprietorship, there's no law or regulation that requires them to have any price at all. And that's very problematic, and what we're doing would correct that.
Yes, Senator Chip.
So I'm glad you're going to study this because I do think there's a lot in here that we need to understand. And I don't think any of us wants to prevent individual discounting. I mean, that happens all the time. And if we go down this path, I made this point previously, what you're going to get is what we have with vehicles and manufacturers suggested retail price, which is much higher that barely anybody ever pays, and they're just always going to discount it. So if we start preventing people from charging more on an individual basis, the natural market reaction is they're going to set, because they can set this cup right here, $200. All right. So they're just going to set it high and then have a bunch of ways to discount based on.
That wasn't really $200.
It's $200. I'm telling you right now, $200. But I will give you $100 discount today.
I thought you
My
were saying
point
like,
is, I don't think there's an easy answer to this, and I don't necessarily support mandating everybody out there wanting to sell something in the market to have a price displayed, because I think that carries with it a great deal of burden that doesn't really reflect the natural nature of markets.
Go ahead.
So we allow this for gas prices right now, which people are incredibly sensitive to. And there are probably some people who know if I go shopping, if I get my gas at 11 a.m., it's going to be cheaper than at 4:30. I didn't know that. That's really good to know. The static pricing, like, I think digital displays are just going to be helpful moving forward. I mean, they could put other languages on there, like at Lowe's, like this is a tool that we shouldn't prohibit stores from having. And I don't know. I mean, like, I'm open to having the conversation about them changing the price for everyone at the same time at any time in the day. I don't know exactly where you're at, Senator Chittenden. I don't think most Vermonters want to watch that display change because their phone got near it and they are, like behind someone in line who just paid a different price for an item.
If it changes down, they're happy. I mean, that's what I do all the time. I identify who I am with the rewards programs. I'll get discounts or carryover benefits or otherwise. So
Okay, but are we going to start having like leave your phone in the car, or like bring your phone that shows you're a thrifty person, like bring your kids' phone? Like
we're
what?
studying it, diving deep into it.
Okay.
I'm just not ready to pass this
Part
bill.
of the whole issue of doing the study is also to think forward, because as we react to the change in technology, the other people are going to react to the change in technology, and they're going to develop ways to tell how you can force these other things to change the price, or how you could be alerted to a price change, as the case may be. And that's the next piece of technology that's on the way.
We are supportive of electronic shelf tags. We think they have great promise to help the accuracy of pricing.
Mhm.
So the issue then of going to the next step of having you come back with the notion of a study or what have you to say how you will address this and add that as part of the House Ag bill. That makes sense? Is that
We're happy to, over the next year, to
Yeah.
study and Scott, we
Senator
can
Clarkson.
do something.
Yeah. Senator Clarkson? Sorry, you're not coming through on sound.
Oh, can't hear me?
No. At least not sentences.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, great. So it sounds like with this issue, I would propose that we wait for this bill to get to Senate Ag and that we ask Mike O'Grady to work with Mark and Scott to develop language around charging them with doing some additional work and investigation into how we might address surveillance pricing in addition to the things they're addressing currently, but that we be prepared for when it comes to Senate Ag with a proposal on how we move this forward so that we can address it and take action next year.
grateful. Betty, do you have any other thoughts about additional? Do either of you gentlemen have any other thoughts as to what other things we should study or how we should word what it is we're studying? What it is that we might be asking you to do?
Well, I guess we probably have questions.
Yeah, we read 207 and a few parts of that were not that clear to us.
Okay.
You know,
Well, perhaps the easiest way to do it is to read them and then have a consultation with Mike O'Grady.
yeah.
And then either at that point articulate what those questions are, or come back, since I think you have a pretty good idea for the discussion today, what it is that we're looking for you to do, and with Mr. O'Grady, articulate that in language that is legislative language and reach our brains.
Yeah.
You've been before us before from Weights and Measures. Have you answered the creamy question? What defines a large and small? There's huge variation in the great state of Vermont.
Like, if you, I'll text my wife.
Okay.
She'll let you know. Real quick.
Sounds like more research.
Yes, more
necessary.
Jim, can I just ask one general clarification?
Sure.
Is this bill about just pricing in stores, or is this about pricing in general, e-commerce and retail? Like,
Right.
do we know what the scope of the original
That's a
thought
very
was?
It's a good question.
Or do you want to define it just as algorithmic pricing?
I think that gets, again, I think we want to know what the focus is, right? Because again, we were like in our language, we were very careful to be in physical retail stores, because if we
Right.
get bigger to e-commerce, then things change a lot because the capacities are much different
Mhm.
on online.
The capacity staffing expertise to enforce some of that AI surveillance pricing. Currently, the Weights and Measures program would struggle with that. Scott, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about moving stuff to e-commerce is then it takes a whole different skill set than what we currently have. Whereas retail, we have a pretty good handle on enforcement.
Well, what we could do is perhaps craft something that addresses both, at least in terms of the question, and recognize that there's some things that you may be able to do now based on retail pricing. There are other things that are concepts that we ought to think about and determine whether or not we should address it and when.
Right, and there are ways that other states have addressed the expertise and the staffing issue while still providing consumer information. And New York is probably the best example of that. If your price is set by an algorithm in New York, the retailer in-store online has to have a disclaimer that says this price was set by an algorithm. And it's withstood a First Amendment claim first stage trial. But I think that would be a consumer protection. That's something that the Attorney General would enforce, not necessarily the agency and its pricing regulation. But you have options, and frankly, over the next year, you're going to see a lot of states doing multiple different things with this issue.
Understood. Anything else that any member of the committee would like to add at this point, or suggest, or raise, or either of you gentlemen? Senator Clarkson?
Yeah, if Mike, if you'd be willing to take on, so I think you're pretty clear on what we're interested in. If you could work with Mark and Scott on crafting what's this language, and then I think that we are interested in e-commerce. There's no question, because surveillance pricing is at its most insidious online. But I think we I think we're interested in both, and we would want to ask you probably to engage with the AG and with our ADS, with you know, our IT people to figure out how we could address both retail and online and in stores for the future, because I think this is going to be a huge issue in the next, it's just going to explode if we don't sort of get our handle on it soon.
Well, I think it might be useful to ask those here to outline what you think this piece to add to the House bill should look like. I think you've got a general idea of what our concerns are.
Yeah.
And then back with a draft or a set of ideas that we can discuss and then move to the next step. Yeah.
Exactly, and that we
With the House.
and that we can work with Senate Ag on. That would be great.
Yeah. Great. Hey, thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
We learned a lot.
Thank you.
Much of that standard creaminess.
Right, right.
I'm still mad about the maple syrup with the grade change. Coming up.
On the betrayal, that was a long time.
Well, I'm old enough to have been here for that.
Take care. Have a good week. That's.
Okay, you can-
That's your life is good if that's your problem. It's not creaminess.
Sorry.
You all been to the State House before?
Oh, yeah.
Good, good. And we got exactly the right amount of chairs. This is good, this is planning.
Thought about it. I'm gonna, we'll do.
Has anybody else coming?
No, I think this is.
Start a couple minutes early then, so today, we have a distinguished president before the House, Senate Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs, and that's us. And since you've probably not been to this committee before, let's perhaps go around the room and just tell you who we are, and then we're going to perhaps ask who you are. So the first person is on the screen right there, and that is the chair of our committee. And Al, would you like to introduce yourself?
If you can hear me, I'm Allison Clarkson. It's wonderful to have you. I represent one of the three people that represents Windsor District. And we're so proud of you. You're really shining examples of how our workforce development work is in action. And so it's lovely to have you here today.
Okay. And then Senator Weeks.
Good morning, Dave Weeks, representing Rutland County.
I'm Tom Chittenden, so I represent the southeast quadrant of Chittenden County with Senator Ron Hinsdale. Anybody from Chittenden County? Okay, so south end of Burlington, South Burlington, Shelburne, Charlotte, Heinsberg, Williston, St. George, Underhill, Jericho, Bolton, and Williston. If you live in those communities, me and Senator Ron Hinsdale represent you.
Yes. And I'm Senator Randy Brock, and I represent Franklin County and the northern part of Grand Isle County. And so welcome to our committee today. And I understand you're going to be talking with us and giving us comments about accelerated degree pathways. We can't wait. So who's going to start with the introduction of who everybody is and of who the group is and
Great. I'm Rebecca Copans with the McClure Foundation. We're here today to talk about accelerated degree pathways through early college and the free degree promise, which is a debt-free associate's degree at CCD. And I just wanted to start today by talking about, we talk a lot with students and young people about how they want people to talk with them about career pathways and what comes next after high school. And I realized I meant to grab a bunch, but I'm going to leave this with you. It really is a collection of how students really want people to show up in these conversations. And given that we're talking about career pathways with young people, it's a great anchoring.
if you could just make a copy.
I actually have more of. Okay, sorry, I apologize.
That way, as you talk or others talk, we could follow along some of the high points of your handout.
And I want to introduce Joyce Judy.
Thank you, and I apologize for my voice. I will try to make it last for a while. But really, I want to thank you for the invitation to come and talk today about flexible pathway bill and really in particular the early college program.
And Senator Clarkson, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Spend some time together. So this is
I wish, Joyce, I was there to see you. So, and Rebecca, I'm sorry to be, I'm on my way to my nephew's wedding in Chicago. So for the young people, real people do, and, you know, do things for their lives other than the legislature.
And so I would be happy to come back and talk in depth about the Flexible Pathways program, because I think today we're really we invited students to come, and many of them haven't been to this house before. And also this is a chance for them to share their voice, to talk to you about something they're really passionate about. So I'm only going to give a brief sort of level set about the Flexible Pathways bill in Act 77, and then we're going to really turn it over to the students and let them share their stories with me, because I think that's, I don't know about you, but I always love hearing from students. That's what makes my work. So just as sort of level set, the Flexible Pathways bill was passed 2013, and it's really Act 77. And really the whole goal of it was designed to help more young people finish high school and be ready for college and their career, whatever order that happened in. And also the emphasis helping people realize that no matter what, after high school, they have to figure out how to continue their learning well beyond high school and whatever pathway that takes. And I think that, you know, I'm not telling you anything that you probably know this better than all of us, because you hear this regularly. Every employer in the state of Vermont feels like they have jobs and they don't have enough people to fill them, or they are having people apply, they're not the right skill match. So we are really trying to work really closely with employers. And I see the Flexible Pathway bill as one of the best economic development strategies Vermont has, in terms of that pipeline of young people being prepared for whatever their next steps are. And, you know, I think that if you look at Vermont, those who enroll in the K-12 system, the majority of them are going to stay in Vermont. So I feel like for all of us, how do we help make sure that they are operating at their full potential? And I think as we look at students who are in high school and then they're entering their senior year, you know, for some of them, the traditional high school path works really well. And then there are people for whom they need other options to keep them engaged, keep them filling their passion, and even more importantly, staying enrolled and completing high school. So, you know, we have CTEs, which are really popular. We have work-based learning. We have dual enrollment. We have early college. There are lots of pathways. And I think that is a credit to Vermont and Vermont legislature. We passed 77 recognizing that. And I think today it's even more important than it ever has been, because Vermont actually has the lowest high school graduation and college going rate of any state. And that's pretty shocking. And so if we weren't, what worries me, if we didn't have Act 77, how much lower it would be than it currently is. And we need to, okay, how can we do it more? Because we're not gaining ground. And so I think that, you know, as we're, you know, today you're going to have the opportunity to hear people from students who have opted for the early college program. You know, for 5 to 6% of the students in Vermont, we are that's the number that are enrolling for the past few years for early college. CCDC about between 230, 250 students every year enrolled in early college. And what warms my heart, and what I think, you know, and I think, as I look around, you've heard me say this many times, but the reason why I've stayed at the Community College of Vermont is because we are really focused on, you know, we serve just a huge diversity of students. We serve a high number of low income, we serve a high number of first generation, we serve a high number of veterans, we serve a high number of students who are incarcerated and or debt release. But we also see the other continuum, people who are doing incredibly well, but feel like this is the right route for them. They can do the first 2 years at CCD and transfer to wherever they want to go. And so I think that as we look at early college, what we're seeing is a high number of low income first generation students opting to go into early college. And that is a group that, as we all think about helping all Vermonters operate to their full potential, that's a group that we can really help and support. And that's why I feel so strongly about this program. And as we think about early college, the one thing that and this is McClure Day at this, yeah, so I would be remiss in not really giving a huge shout out to the Free Degree Promise program, which has been funded and it's supported by the McClure Foundation. And just quickly, what that does, students who do early college at CCD, the McClure Foundation helps those underwrites their second year at CCD at no cost to their families, them or the families. So they are going to graduate from CCD with an associate degree at no cost to themselves or their families. And then they can either enter the workforce or they can transfer to UVM. We have 26 pathways with UVM. We have more than that with Vermont State University. We have that many with Champlain. We have a number with CMICE. These are the courses you take at CCD. And when you transfer to UVM, you enter as a junior and you start right with the junior level courses just as you would if you started at CCD. I mean, at UVM. And so if you think about that, for students, let's say going from CCD, doing that at CCD and then going to UVM, they have saved their families more than $30,000. That's real money. And that makes a college education so much more doable for families. So I'm going to stop there, but I just want to say thank you for the support that you've given. I do think, that this committee is really focused on economic development. And whether we're in this committee or in education, I would be saying this is the best economic development strategy. For one of the best. So I'm going to turn it back to Rebecca, and she's going to invite different students, come up and share their story. Thank you. And I would be happy to come back. Allison, I would be happy to come back and talk more in depth.
Thank you.
And I will. All right. So Edith, you want to join us?
Sure.
Come on up.
You too.
You want to give your name and your town for the record?
My name's Aiden Hall and I'm from Proctor, Vermont.
So, and can you tell us why you chose early college and what you're doing now?
So I'd say one of my biggest motivations to join the early college program is it gave me a lot more opportunities. As everybody needs to know, Proctor is very, very, very small. I didn't have much opportunities to go into the field that I wish to go into, information technology and cybersecurity in general. Most we had was a intro scratch classroom like that. Doing early college allowed me to expand my interest in actually being able to take classes from what I wanted to learn and eventually develop that into a full-fledged information technology degree. From there, though, my other big motivation was just money. Getting the early college program and the Free Degree Promise allowed me to kind of get my toes wet in the college program in the area. I wasn't too stressed about, I have to make it, I have to succeed in this because I'm already paying $40,000 a year or something to college. It allowed me to take my first year much more relaxed, I would say, and be able to investigate what I wanted to do. As what I'm doing now, I decided to stay local. I transferred from CCP up to Champlain because of the transfer pathways they had. And so far, I haven't had a chance to get an internship yet, but I'm planning on doing some internships at the local Center, Leahy Center, that was just recently developed. I finished developing and all that. So,
and what do you hope to do with when you graduate from Champlain? What do you hope to do?
Probably stay here. One of my biggest opportunities I've been planning on trying for is Casella, being out of Rutland. I know, I was speaking with a few of my professors at Champlain. They said that they're working with them already about doing some internships and all that. And having that opportunity to stay, not even just in Vermont, near Proctor, just because it's like literally 10 minutes away, it allows me to get my foot in the door. I want to say kind of, I'm able to stay local, stay with my parents for a couple of years as I try to actually get an initial job to either Casella or a remote country like that, and just stay there. That's good. I love Vermont. I love getting this beautiful state. God.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your story.
Absolutely.
All right, Hanukkah. Will you introduce yourself and tell us what town you live in?
Yes, so my name is Anna Gayfee and I am Manchester.
And can you tell us a little bit about why you chose early college, which is quite different than Ada? What's fascinating is all of these students have very different stories of why they chose early college. And tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I first heard about early college when I was a junior, when we were doing the mandatory like counselor meetings that you had to do to learn about what comes after college, what comes after high school, excuse me. I was always really nervous about going into college because it's like, well, this is something that my parents did. This is something that my siblings did. This is something that my extended family did. I need to go to college. Well, I was really scared to jump from high school to college because unfortunately, I had always dreamed that there maybe would be some sort of stepping stone in between high school and college because it's a big jump. It's a big jump that really affects students drastically. And especially like Aiden said, when you're paying that much money, you have this expectation that you have to stay there and you have to do really well. And unfortunately, that actually happened to one of my friends recently. And I'm so forever thankful for the early college experience. So when I heard about early college, I realized that there actually was this stepping stone between high school and college. I'm not jumping from these lower level high school classes to upper level college where I don't necessarily have the close support system like I had in high school. And then the big part was money. So my family, both sides of my family, my mom and my dad both grew up in homes, very supportive, but didn't have the money to do these things. And they both started jobs when they were 14, 15. And they've always worked for their families. And so I got my first job at 14. I have worked every day since, or I've worked a lot since then, multiple jobs doing all these kinds of things because I developed this sort of independence where I wanted to be the kid who could support my family. And early college really solidified that for me. So it was an opportunity for me to go to school and to not have to give that financial burden to my parents, which was huge to me. And early college actually allowed me to go through school for 2 years with no financial burden, and you actually end up getting stipends, which was huge. So money that I could put towards going and buying my books and things like that, and travel and things, everything in between, and then the opportunities that were available. So the early college, the ambassador program has been huge. It's been absolutely monumental. I've been able to go to so many places, do so many things that I never thought, and that really led me into where I am now. So I actually just got my real estate license in December. I have developed immense speaking skills and personal skills and things like that, where I can really connect with people. And I don't think that that's something that I would have developed without early college, because I was taking all of these speaking classes, I was taking ethics classes, and I wasn't just taking high school classes, college class. There was this opportunity to do so many different things, which has been huge for me, has been monumental. I'm now at St. Mike's and I'm studying business administration and environmental studies. And I've made it an important thing for me to continue with this master program because here I'm able to talk to people like you and to allow these other students to go through the same kind of experience that I did. And I really don't think that this would have been possible without the early college and the pre-degree promise program. So keeping it is something really important. And I think it's really valuable to students like myself who have that sense of independence and feel that need to really want to support their families the way that they can.
Great. This is very helpful. It would be useful just to give us a 30-second view of how the program works. In other words, at what point from high school do you go and where do you go next? And how does the timing work?
Yeah. So in their junior year, students decide they can apply through, they can apply for early college. These folks are all through CDB. You can also, there's Vermont State University and Norwich are the other two entities that that have early college programs. With the free degree promise, if you go through CCD, through early college at CCD, you can take your next 5 semesters are paid for through the McClure Foundation. It includes advanced advising. So one of the key facets of the program is an advising program that really helps students with career planning, and really just mapping out like, how are you doing today? Having advisors check in. I think most of the students here, when I look around, I'm like, I could see their advisors behind them because they're so incredibly supportive of helping them figure out what their next steps are. And also really key to that is the transfer pathways. So like Eden or Annika or Madison, Ruby's still in free degree right now. They are able to help them figure out where their transfer pathway is going, and so they don't miss any steps. So when they get to St. Mike's or Champlain, they know they can just like step right into their junior year. Another key part of the program is a stipend for books and transportation and whatever students need. It's a small stipend through the McClure Foundation. And these are the 3 key, besides the tuition, the free tuition. Those are the 3 key.
Movement occur prior to graduation from high school,
Yes.
and how much earlier?
So
I was,
Joyce, you want to?
well, there's two programs we're talking about today. So early college is a program, it's part of Act 77. And and so what a student does if they enroll in the early college program, they do all of their academic work at CCV. So they can play sports at their high school. They can participate in all the extracurricular at the high school, but they do all their academic work at CCV. So they're getting their high school diploma and they're getting their first year of college. So we have a lot of students graduate from CCV who first week in June, they get their they get their CCE degree because they've gone through the free degree promise, but they also are getting their high school diploma. So students do early college their senior year. That is with state support. Then the McClure Foundation has been incredibly generous. They gave us a 5-year grant and they've extended it by 2 years. We've been working with, different legislators and with the governor's office to figure out how do we continue this program after 2 more years? Because right now, so it will have been 7 years of funding for the McClure Foundation to support the free degree programs. So the early college program is part of Act 77, and that's really to help students complete high school. It's one of the multiple pathways that students can access. And then if they complete that program at CCD, they're eligible to apply for the free degree promise that is currently funded with the McClure Foundation. Is that helpful?
It is. Thank you very much.
It's the master. All of the details. Okay. How much time do you have? Do we have a minute to just introduce folks?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay. Can we just go around the room and just mention your name, what town you're from, and what your degree track is? Do you want to start, Madison?
Yeah, I'm Madison. I'm from Shelburne, and I am doing health science at CCB, and I'm going to transfer to UVM and get my master's in biochemistry. My name's Ruby. I'm from Burlington, and I am set to get my associates in STEM studies this spring.
All right. I am Brennan. I'm from Middlesex, and I'm currently set to get an associate's in business, upon which I plan on transferring to another university. Not sure which year.
Hello, my name is Jade. I am in Derby, and I'm also studying for STEM.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm from Barrie. And right now I'm doing my health and sciences degree at CCB, but next year I will be attending Vermont State University Randolph to do my accelerated nursing degree.
And I'm Miriam. I'm from Fairfax, and I'm going to be graduating this spring with an associate's in liberal studies.
Well, we've got great pathways lined up, and it sounds like a wonderful program that seems to be very, very successful. So congratulate you, and you're welcome to the State House, come back to the State House, run for office or do something. You use the time that you've got here for something productive, but again, I think it's a wonderful program, everything we heard about it. It's very impressive and wish you the very best of success. And once you achieve that, come back and tell us what you've done so it'll help others.
Can I make one last closing pitch? So Representative Marcotte in House Commerce has introduced a bill along with most of the Commerce Committee that would create a sustainable funding source for this program. The Higher Ed Trust Fund is intended to support non-loan student aid. The McClure Foundation has worked with Representative Marcotte to create a structure that would be a split 4 ways approach to the Higher Ed Trust Fund. Currently it's 3. It's UVM, VSAC, and Vermont State Colleges. In our proposal, it would be 4. So CCD and the Vermont State University would both be equally named in the Higher Ed Trust Fund to support these accelerated degree pathways like the Free Degree Promise.
And he's, Representative Marcotte has a bill.
He introduced the bill.
Okay.
It went to House Education. And if you have a moving vehicle of anywhere that you might slide something like that.
Right, the real question right now is whether or not it's going to get to crossover to come over to the Senate in time. And the time is getting relatively short. So
It is.
We'll follow.
But keep an eye out for
We
it.
follow up with Representative Marcotte just to get a sense of where things are.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
Great, thank you again for coming.
Did you go to Fulton High School?
I did, I believe in my.
So you will talk to Holly.
Was it Julie Prescott, to your council?
So I did CPB, I did mainly online. I did that in senior high school and then.
Nope, I do remember the name. I 100% remember the name.
This fall, I
That's all my wife, Central Love.
I thank you. I missed her so much.
Nice to meet you.